There you go. They're number 5. Have I been capping for Quacker for more than a year? 100%. Did I cast a bunch of Quacker in the offseason? 100%. I don't care. I think Quacker is now in a better position than he was on Supernova. I think all 3 of the other people here would agree that this is a better team around him now than it was on Supernova.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to our pre-season 3 episode of The Salt Mine. We are coming at you with power rankings for the NACL Season 14 Spring Split, where you've got 10 teams, all of us ranked from top to bottom. TDS had a little bit of a last-minute emergency, so he will not be able to join us, but we've got his rankings right here to add to the list. My name is Gordo, and I am joined by Slayer, Nyarko, and Bonfire for another preseason rundown. But before we get into that, do want to take a couple seconds here and chat about some of the news that just came out today. It is January 9th at the time that we are recording. Mark Zimmerman Zimmerman, I don't know why I can't say that, just came out and gave his address to the LCS, and that came with it some LCS and NACL news. Most notably for NACL is going to be that we are officially on Fearless Draft. We've known that for a while. We are in a best-of-1 single round robin format. We have got ourselves a time slot right after LCS every single week, where there are going to be 2 best-of-3s following the LCS on Saturdays and Sundays. I think that's about all of the new news. So it's a lot of stuff to chat about. Anything stand out to you guys as things that are worth particularly discussing before we get into the teams?
I think for the life, like, it's funny to like sit here compared to a year ago and talking about where we thought the broadcasts would be, like the time slots, all this stuff, like comparing LEC numbers versus viewership. It's weird to be super optimistic about it. I think the LCS is obviously going to be in a great spot with all those changes, but the fact that you can now roll LCS on the weekends, you're going to get at least a good chunk of the EU viewers coming over for that and then LCS, and then you're going to get drip down effect for LCS viewers. They're going to be watching the NACL. It's just all around really good moves. I mean, I don't really know how else to describe it. It's kind of what I feel like we've all been asking for out of at least the scheduling of both of these leagues back to back together for all of 2023. So, and now it's here, and I don't know how to feel about it yet.
I see. For me, I think that it almost feels like the past failures of tier 2 of League of Legends in North America have built up to this. It feels like they just continue to throw like darts at a dartboard and seeing what sticks. And so in a way, I'm kind of optimistic because there's been so much failure and there's been so many things that just haven't worked. I mean, we used to have 16 teams. It's way too many teams. So they figured out what number of teams works. I feel like they've nailed down the OQ at this point. Now they're going to try to get the scheduling figured out. It feels like every split there's something that's a little bit better than the previous split. And I gotta say I'm confident, which is a weird feeling. I'm with you, because it just feels like nothing ever goes right in in tier 2. But I think it's fair to say that they're learning from their mistakes, and I'm excited about this new format.
Good stuff, good stuff. Yeah, the only thing I'd add, I did forget to include this up at the start. There are also some changes to the methodology that they're going to be streaming OQs with. We don't talk about OQs too much here. It does sound like accessibility for OQs is going way down. They're going to like play them on the weekends and record them in secret and then restream them on the weekdays. It's sounding like they're not going to be casted. Still a lot of details to be determined there. All in all, not really a fan of that direction. And not just because Nyarko was on those last split, and I think most of us were hoping to be on those sometime soon. On that, I just want to use what little platform we have to say that we should really just move back to teams being able to stream their own OQ games. Like 2.5 years ago, that's just the way that this scene worked. For those who are maybe newer or weren't following as much at the time, like teams just like broadcast their own games trying to qualify for Proving Grounds at that time. Like there were official broadcasts too, but a lot of teams, and I would say the majority of the total games, just ended up having to be streamed independently. That went away once Unified took over and ran all of the streams through them. But I mean, that was okay because they streamed all the games. So I mean, if we're not
Right.
streaming all the games anymore, I don't really know what purpose this serves. The only counter argument that I've heard to it is that we're on Tournament Realm now, and so there's no spec delay, and so there's like competitive integrity concerns about having teams have their own spectators. To that, I'd say, I mean, first of all, do we even really need to be on Tournament Realm if we're playing on Chicago anyway? And even if we are, can we get like can we like flip a switch and just put spectate delay back on Tournament Realm so that
Yeah,
the
right.
entire NACL queue could be streamed again? I don't know. I just wanted to rant about that for a moment, but so hopefully brighter days ahead there. But other than that, I agree with what you guys said. I think this is a great series of changes for the ecosystem, and hopefully, the LCS is mega successful, and that trickles down to the NACL and to the NACLQ circuit.
I do want to quickly reinforce everything, Gordo, you just said about the OQs, because that is the one area where I'm like, it couldn't all be good. It couldn't all.
Can't have it all.
Can't have
Well,
it all. But yeah,
They
who even
fix
had a
one
problem with spec
they
delay,
make
by the way?
another.
Yeah, exactly. Who had a problem with spec delay? Players sitting an extra couple minutes, like.
Well, it's more that
I
it's
remember.
like I remember this was a thing because I remember last year people thought
Mhm.
that Rally Cry were giving teams access to stream throughout the whole tournament, and immediately, immediately coaches and players both started raising concerns like, "Hey, I don't want the guy playing against me to be on a zero delay, to have access to a zero delay spectate stream with no fog." In the lobby from their organization, because it would be like you would end up giving that TR account to like a coach or an owner or something, and yeah, I mean, people were concerned.
Yeah. I think also this is something like we obviously have a vested interest because we're all casters and we want to be able to cast for these teams. I think it's going to hurt players as well. I mean, you think about all the players that are able to get their names out there because they, have a dedicated stream towards them where all of their games get casted. And so I do think it's going to hurt players as well with marketability.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, not a good change.
that not to hang on this for too long because obviously we're a little biased towards it and it's not what people come here for, but that's the other like 2+ years ago, being able to run your own stream, that was like good for sponsors and stuff. Maybe not universally, but I remember at least I worked with Wildcard a lot back then, and they had like a sponsorship deal with like Trovo. So they would like stream their qualifier games on Trovo, and like they could have their own assets with all their other sponsors plastered all over the stream. Like it was good for them for marketability to have it run that way compared to like when Unified took over and then when Rally Cry took over, to where it's only their sponsors, it's only their stuff, and Wildcard has no real opportunities to put that stuff around. Maybe that's not the case for everybody, but there's definitely cases where it was true.
Yeah, nobody was getting mad at org. Nobody gets mad at orgs having sponsors. I feel like everybody that sees an org with sponsor, like, that's cool. That's sick. Nobody cares that someone has to read a 15-second ad read for Coachify or something like that. They're like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. The other ones we're seeing right now. So yeah.
All right. Well, that's it. That's OQs. Excited for the new format. Excited for the new stream of viewers that are going to come to the NACL as a result of this round of changes. With that said, let's get into some of our power rankings for this season. See what we have to say about some of these squads. We're going to go in alphabetical order. Let's go around table, give our ranks of each team, and then we'll go high ranking versus low ranking. I guess I'll read off TDS's ranking while I am here. Since that's what just seems to make sense. So let's kick it off at the top of the alphabet with AOE. No longer AOE Gold, just AOE once again. TDS has this team 4th. I have this team 5th.
I've got him 6th.
I got him 4th.
I have them 6th.
6th for Bonfire, and then 4th for Nyarko. All right. I mean, Nyarko, you're the highest. If you want to start on off, talk us up on AOE.
I think that AOE's overall, I guess, build out is one that gets me hyped because I think that it's really well tuned for attacking the way that other teams have been playing in the NACL in the past season. And I know obviously meta is going to be a huge defining factor in how people play off of one another, but you also got to look at individual player matchups for some of the people who are kind of now career NACL workers, people who have been doing it for the entirety of the past year. And for me, the things that I'm really happy about seeing are Wixie coming out swinging in that ADC role, and then having Rosethorn in the jungle. Rosethorn is just one of the most consistent players. I think that as we get the season under wraps, it's going to be him coming out the first few games, really showing why he deserves to continue to be featured as one of the top junglers in the league. And then having Wixie by his side, who's been, making stories, has quite a bit of buzz around him in the social media sphere, I think is just going to add to the fact that AoE have a really solid continuity between these two players, with especially Rosethorn being such a facilitator, with that signature Sejuani and things like that, that I think could really kind of build to a kind of carry-oriented meta that I think a lot of people are speculating we have a chance at having, given that there's so many things happening in the preseason realm. So that's why I have confidence in them. I also do think that they are the first below a top 3 that is just head and shoulders above everybody else. So with that in mind, their proximity to my people in like 5th and 6th is still pretty close. So I wouldn't read too much into the 4th.
All right, Slayer, Bonfire, you guys are the haters at number 6. I'll round us out because I'm in the middle. But tell us about AoE.
Are we haters? It's a 2 different. I guess we are.
I mean,
that's a 5th of the league, man.
Yeah. I'll go first because I actually kind of want to rebuke what Nyarko's saying for my ranking. First off, I think the game of League changed so much more than I expected it to change going into a season, with the map changes, the fearless draft, and then some of the item changes. I think bottom lane is actually going to be the weakest part of Summoner's Rift, at least for the first couple of patches. I believe Assassins now have itemization where they can have a lot more success, which opens up a lot more champion picks for some of these mid laners that I know are a lot more aggressive. It's much easier to set up dives and punish bottom lanes way further than it was on previous League with the map changes alone. And for that reason, as much as I do like Wixie, and as much as I love Breezy, I just think that solo lanes are kind of the controlling factors in a lot of these games right now for a lot of those reasons. And I have a lot more faith with some of these other solo lanes. I'm a lot higher on a lot more of the solo lanes to perform compared to Onat and Zamudo right now, which is crazy to say compared to last split. And I wasn't that impressed by Rosethorn. So factoring all that, factoring how much more I like the top side of the map just in general for all these players, AoE kind of slipped down. Not to say that they won't punch above their weight. If I had to put a ceiling on them, right outside of top 3 would be the ceiling. I'm just betting more towards their floor, based on what I've seen the last split and what I think the meta is going to look like with the new map. So that's why I landed on 6.
Yeah,
That's fair.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of with Slayer on that as well. I think that the new map is going to change how jungle is played primarily, and I think that you have to look towards more aggressive junglers. And I don't know, you just look at Rosethorn's stats, and this is a great player who I think when it comes to team fighting, I just don't think there's many other junglers that are better. One of the best team fighting junglers. He's somebody that you want in your front line. You want setting these plays up. But if you look at the early game, realistically, his statistics don't really favor him. He just farms up. He ganks when it's the best possible time to gank. But you don't see him taking a lot of risks, and I think that could be an issue, especially with the new map. I think I'm also a Slayer as well. I don't like saying I'm out on people because I really want everybody to succeed. I want this to be a striving thing, but I'm kind of out on Onat, if I'm being honest. I think Zamudo can be great. I'm not huge on Onat, and I think also I think kind of the agreement is that we're all pretty high on Wixie. But I think if you look at champ pool, which is kind of an underrated thing that a lot of people don't talk about, I'm kind of concerned about Wixie's champ pool. You look at some of the champions that he picked last split. He barely won any games on Lucian, on Zeri, on
this
these
is his
very
split.
Yeah, this is I think it's actually just his whole year combined.
Yeah. Well, he was in Korea last split, so he would have been back in.
Yeah. Well, maybe I might be looking at the wrong thing then. But the point is, I just don't know if I can believe in this team as a whole.
Fair enough. Yeah, I've already screwed it up. I'm going to. I should be saying the rosters when we announce the teams. I'll have them right up, right up here, not up there, up here. Uh, so that'll have already been edited in by the time you're watching this at home. But the roster from top to bottom, just for completeness' sake, is Zamudo, Rosethorn, Onat, Wixie, and Breezy. I think I'm kind of in the middle of both these opinions. I kind of side more with Nyarko and what I assume TDS says as well. I'm a little higher on this team. I think this is my favorite team this year. I love all the pieces they've been able to get for themselves. I just can't justify putting the anybody but the top 4 teams in the top 4. Like I think the top 4 teams are the ones who are kind of the big spenders of the NACL this split. And we'll get to them when we get to them, but I just can't really justify putting anybody above those 4. But if I were in a position, shout out to Demos, assuming that he was in this position. If I'm in a position where there's 4 teams that are big spenders and they're gobbling up all the best players at every position, and then I'm told, hey, you could build whatever team you want out of all the pieces that are left, I'd probably build something that's very similar to this AOE squad. We've already praised Wixie a little bit, and I'm going to be right on that. The best 80 carry in NACL is a title that is wide open this split. King, Arrow, Wixie, or no, Wixie's obviously here. King, Arrow, Meech, and Masu are all gone. I think you could make an argument that those were the top 4 marksmen in summer. So wide open position, lots of rookies coming in at that role. I think Wixie is my favorite to be able to go in and take that role. I got really high on Breezy last year after his performance on the previous AoE team. I really liked what they were able to put together there. And yeah, I think Onat and Zamudo are well positioned to take steps up. And I've always been a fan of Rosethorn as like an enabling style player. So I think all he needs is one of these solo laners to take the big step up to be a solid top half of the league player. I think he can already rely on his bot lane to be that. And I think this team is well positioned to be around 5th, and it would be super cool for them to break top 4 because it would mean we have like a whole new set of players who are getting actual looks from LCS orgs and stuff like that. I think all 5 of these players are ones that I would love to see that get that kind of attention towards them. So yeah, I'm a big fan of AoE. I'm going to be rooting for them, but I cannot justify putting them above 5th. And I'm interested to see who Nyarko and TDS have out of the top 4 down somewhere lower.
Yeah, I'm interested because you say it's a top 4 that creates the upper crust boundary. For me, it's really just a top 3, and then there's a little bit more granularity from there on out. So
right, we'll see. You're lower on one of the big spenders than me. I guess we'll
Yep.
see which one it is.
I'm definitely in that camp with Nyarko. So
I'm with Nyarko as well, I think.
Wow. All right. Well, no love for the top 4. I thought there would be like a consensus top 4. So this will be interesting as we get into it. Up next on the list, then, just to keep our pace chugging along, we've got Cincinnati Fear. This team, before I forget, is Philip, Chad, Toasty Alex, Lens, and Daption from top to bottom. TDS has this team 6th. I have this team 7th.
Yes, time for me to make the bit again in another Power Rankings video. I also have them 7th with Gordo, and I did not collude on the ranking.
This is my first big deviation, I guess, and I'm happy I have it because I was looking at TDS's list, and we are otherwise pretty similar. I have them all the way up at 5th.
Ooh.
I feel weird saying this, but I have them as 4th. I think they might be one of my. That might be my hot take. Yeah, that might be my hot take.
I'm outdone. Okay, never mind.
I do have to say, by the way, Bonfire has had a hot take that has been bananas correct both times we've done this, because it was Dignitas Challengers in spring, and it was Evil Geniuses Challengers in summer.
Well, the Evil Genius Challengers one, I don't know how much we can
I'm not going to deny him. I'm not going to deny him that. He gets it.
When you made the EG Challengers reference, that was without Surdy in the top lane and Armeo subbing in a jungle. That does not count at all. I'm not counting that one.
Just the way the dice roll. Also, King was their main carry, and he was still on the roster, so I don't want to hear it.
What?
I don't want to hear it.
No, that one does not count.
Give me my flowers.
I'll give it to him.
I'll give you a flower.
All right. Bonfire, you're the highest. Tell us why you love Cincinnati Fear.
Yeah, I will say, and this is to discredit me, is I think that I'm less knowledgeable about all of this than you guys. So I think this speaks to the randomness that the NACL can bring each split. But the fact that I'm right 2 times means that either I'm an agent of chaos or I'm actually secretly better at this than I give myself credit. Cincinnati Fear. First of all, Cincinnati, great city, and they've got themselves a bunch of great players. I think that Philip, Chad, and Lenz are the big three that I'm looking at, and I'm thinking, all right, this could be good. Also, Toasty Alex. I think we had this discussion earlier. He's kind of an unknown entity, and I think that's what excites me. Is that I think that you see a lot of these players, and we think of it as a linear projection, right? They had a good last split. They're going to be better next split. I think that it actually helps when you aren't known. I think that a lot of the best players that we see in the NACL kind of come out of nowhere. They bring this play style, they bring the strategy that you don't see a lot. They bring these random picks that people don't expect to see. I think Fearless is going to help with that because how are you going to scout these players? So you've got a great base that I'm a big fan of. You add an unknown entity. This is where it could go wrong if Toasty Alex is a bad unknown entity. But I'm banking on him doing well. I'm banking on the team kind of being carried through the mid lane and having a really strong base. And I think this is going to be a strong split for Cincinnati Fear.
All right. I am tied for lowest with Slayer. I guess I'll go first. I am
Yeah.
probably too low on this team. I'm going to say that right off the bat. But with that, I'll explain why. I think I have a justifiable reason. I think 5 to 7 are all super close on my list. AoE goes in there as well. And this is just the team I think I have the least out of those 3 to be excited about this split. I think they're solid all around. I was really impressed with what Philip was able to show on Cincy Fear last split. I'm surprised that he didn't end up kind of moving back up into that upper echelon of players based on what he was able to do. He had a series where he nearly just crushed Fake God right out of playoffs. I think a lot of people forget that, but that did happen. They nearly 3-0'd DSG at one point, and 2 games of that was based off 2.5 games of that was based off of Philip just crushing Fake God up there in the top lane. So really high on him. I think Lenz is also positioned super well because, like I said, 80 carries wide open, and Lenz is not a rookie, unlike half the league in that position right now. So I think he's also well positioned to kind of step up and be particularly good. But I just think it's I just feel like I don't have that huge upside for a lot of this team that I do for teams that I'm going to be placing above them. I think their best bet is Toasty. I do love Toasty. I've been advocating for him on Twitter for a while. If Toasty comes out of the gate swinging and is a top 4 mid right away, then I think this team will climb very, very fast, and I will be very quickly adjusting my rankings. But I think mid's pretty competitive this split, especially with the Koreans coming in. There's 2 Korean imports in mid lane in this league now. And if, assuming that Toasty lands where I kind of expect him to, which is going to be lower half, then I think this team is going to struggle to make it, to top 6. So it's really just on the strength of the rest of the rosters. I think there's a lot of parity in this league, this split, that makes me put Fear in 7th rather than any actual dislike of any of the aspects of the team. But maybe Slayer's a bigger hater than me. Slayer, what have you got?
I'm gonna keep it pretty simple here. What made Fear the best, as good as they were for me last year, were 2 players, and they're both not on the squad anymore. Fair. So I think they downgraded at the 2 key positions, and those are 2 key positions that, like I said when we started this with AoE, I think are super valuable. They don't have parry, and they don't have Shoji, and those are your mid jungle duo, which I think are going to be arguably the most important part of most people's splits this time around. So I just had to drop them lower for that alone. And I am also curious how this team is going to operate, especially when it comes to shot calling, because I think this is something that is going to be intriguing. Because usually, obviously Chad's coming in. And then you also have Daption, who I don't know if a lot of people know, but Daption has been around for a while, and he's been a shot caller kind of support leader, I believe, in a couple of the rosters he's played on. So I could see some growing pains coming along with this team. And as much as I very much enjoy Lenz, I think I look at Lenz the same way that Gordo might look at Toasty. There's just too much going against it for me right now. for me to put them much higher than 7th. And yeah.
I think that I've shoved AoE right at the very top of their expected ceiling for me in regards to how I rank them, mostly because I think that the floor is a lot lower for some of the teams that we have coming through, and I'm going to be far more down on them. So while I do think that AoE can easily slot into my placement, I do think that it's about as high as they are possibly able to go, and maybe there will be a collapse, and maybe there will be some disappointments along what you guys are outlining, but I personally have a little bit more faith in the people they have entering into that jungle mid continuity. I think that Toasty Alex is kind of like Bonfire said, an unknown quantity that has quite a bit of potential. Mid is going to be very competitive, and Slayer, if you're right with your meta read, it's going to be very central to play. I can be a bit worried, if not for the fact that Chad, which I think was the golden boy coming out of Mirage Alliance, is coming into that jungle role, and I think is going to be able to fill the shoes of Perry relatively well. Maybe not to the same degree as what Perry was able to pull off, but his aggressive styling, his love of the likes of playmaking, supportive champions that still are able to do a lot early, like Jarvan, I think means that, hey, Toasty Alex could easily be shored up, and maybe there will be some friction on the shot calling front. I don't really know how much Chad wants that capacity versus other people on an AoE, but I think that they have time to slot together really well. And overall, I don't think that they deserve to be top half, but they certainly don't deserve to sink as far as 7, at least in my eyes.
Fair.
That's fair, and I know I'm sure my 6th ranking is gonna make people upset. So that's
Okay.
If you guys hate that opinion enough, then you could bump them up to 6th in my rankings. Like I said, I really do feel like I'm too low on Fear, but I can't justify. I have 6 teams above them. That's the way it is. I think they're firmly above the lower 8, but the lower 3, whatever you want to call it, 8th and below. Yeah, I don't know. That's just where I'm at. Let's, with that, move on towards everybody's favorite disguised reigning NACL champs. They are rocking 4 new players. They've got Tenacity, Perry, Young, Manui, and Poom from top to bottom. TDS has this team 2nd. I have this team 3rd.
As much as I really want to give him a back-to-back chip, I put him 2nd.
I also put him 2nd.
Put them 2nd.
Oh man, I'm the hater. All right, whoever wants to talk. I guess I can go first because I'm the only one who's different. Yeah, wow. I'm starting to feel like I know who in the top 4 other people don't have in the top 4. So we'll get to that. Here's what I think DSG comes down to. I think topside is so strong, and I think they will be very efficient in dispatching of the weaker teams. But I think it is going to be tough for them if they can't go for that like super lane dominant strategy. So I think if like Tenacity and I think it's going to be tough for Tenacity to get big leads on some of the veteran top laners like Jenkins and Surdy. I think it's going to be tough for Young to get leads on like the Koreans. I'm going to be pretty high on them coming on in, them being Quad and Roamer. And I think Keel and Shaden will be able to match Perry like pretty frequently. And when that all kind of starts to happen, and you're not able to snowball through topside like I think this team is designed to do, I'm going to look towards the bot lane, and that's where I'm going to really have some doubts about Manui. I think that was where Cincinnati Fear kind of ran into struggles last year. I think this team feels like an upgraded Cincinnati Fear in a lot of ways. They've kind of brought in, they've got Perry, right? And they've got, I think, really powerful laning top and mid laners. But I think they're going to run into those same issues in the bot lane, despite the fact that I think Poom is very, very good. I just don't trust Manui to be that late game powerhouse carry that I think a lot of other ADs are going to be for their respective teams. And I think when they get to those kind of late game stalled out scenarios against some of the other top teams in the league, I am going to lose faith in them relative to the competition.
Fair enough. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but this is just going back to my logic. I don't value bottom lane as much as the other lanes right now.
Fair.
So,
Yep.
I agree that Manui would be the weakest link, but I just love. I mean, I think Young. You could say what you want about Tenacity. The guy for me is Perry. I think Perry it's purely a work ethic thing for me, man. Because this guy was playing on fear, playing well, better than most people expected. And then what else is he doing? He's streaming all of his challenger games all the time. He's running coach workshops all the time as well. I didn't turn on my Twitch one time and I didn't see him doing, and there wasn't a point where he wasn't streaming something League of Legends related, wasn't grinding League. The kid's got the craziest mindset when it comes to something he sets his hearts on. So I'm kind of just banking on the idea he's worked so hard that he's going to take a step up. And you already highlighted tenacity and young as well, and that's enough to at least get them in the top 3 for me. Top 2. So all that going for him. I nearly put them above the super spender team.
Whoa.
I nearly.
Yeah. Well, I think you're probably glad you didn't. I will say I think that you're very harsh on Manui, and I think that's fair, but I don't think that he's as bad as maybe we made him out to be. And I think also he's going to really benefit from having such a strong front line. I think Poom's a huge upgrade, and then I think that you've got such strong structure around him. I think also you look at his his match history last year and how many different champions he played. And he went through so many different metas. I mean, this guy just played so much that I think that given off season, I think you give him a different team, better front line, better shot calling. It's a better team around him. I am going to say that I think Manui's going to have a better split, and I think he's going to surprise you. So I guess that this makes me, I guess I'm buying stock in Manui, but I think that's why I have them at 2 is because it's different than how Slayer has it. Slayer doesn't believe in Manui, but he doesn't think it's going to matter as much. I do believe in Manui. And so I think that's actually why they'll be second.
I would say I don't believe in him.
Yeah, but
I just
lowest stock on
think
the
he
team
could be.
doesn't mean.
Yeah, I don't think any of us
Yeah.
don't believe in him. I think he's
But he's
surpassed the expectations that he had coming in on that first split with Cincinnati Fear 10 times over.
Right, yeah.
I think a lot of people had him 16th best marksman coming in to last spring. He's definitely well exceeded that, and I don't have him really at the bottom of the table, but I just think he's going to struggle to go toe to toe against some of the best team fighters in the league.
Yeah, I get it.
I think that you see the greatest kind of split in my team building philosophy here, where I really do like DSG's overall idea of putting a ton of emphasis on these solo lanes. And while I was emphasizing the importance of the AD carry role when I was talking about Wixie, when we were touching upon AoE at the very start, the thing that stands out to me is that from the direction of weaker ADC to stronger solo laners, you're kind of able to shore up the weaknesses of a lower tier ADC a lot more competently by just having someone that can smash a solo lane and then work as a front line, kind of what Bonfire was saying. And while therefore I think Wixie is able to propel AoE to say, 4th, 5th place at the very best, the thing with DSG is that because they have tenacity and all these other people shoring up Manui on the bot lane, who I'm kind of with Bonfire, I don't even think is really that bad. I think that he was still a decent contributor in every single team that he was on at the very worst. That means that this is a very justifiable 2 to me. I think that his workload is lessened quite a bit by having Perry in the jungle as well as a playmaking facilitator and also a possible carry in their own right. This means that within the first few weeks, we may see Manui's champion pool really expand, where he figures out, hey, do I want to be more of a supportive AD carry, something that is just setting up utility, or because people are tracking aggro, because people are buying so much space for themselves during team fights, can I go back to full carries, which is my read on the meta, although I've heard apparently in my quick scrolling of Twitter while I was waiting my turn here, seems to be the opposite of what other people are being. People are like, Lucian, Callista and stuff are going to be crazy, so I guess we'll see.
I've heard some of both of those. If that's the case, I didn't even really factor that in too much. I just assumed that I took almost no meta predictions in here because I just don't think I have no faith in my ability to predict what the meta is going to be with all the changes. I just
all new items.
Yeah,
Everybody look at the color caster.
Exactly.
Wait.
No, I mean that came to my reading somewhat. I thought Lucian Callista because what are those 2 AD carries? Super mobile AD carries that aren't super weak out the gate and can't get punished by silly tower dives and level 3 ganks.
Where's Sonori B? Why is he not in this league? That's gonna be
True.
he's gonna be
True.
feasting.
Draven too.
Yeah,
God,
he's
would.
gonna be feasting this meta. I will say, I will add to my DSG opinion. This team's floor is, and I hate using floors. I hate ceiling floor analysis in League of Legends particularly.
It's a cop out. It's a cop out.
I
It's a
disagree.
cop out. My big thing with ceiling floor analysis, not to go to tangent here, but I hate that just because we've seen. Think about what we've seen in the history of League of Legends. We saw the back-to-back champions TL make a small change, arguably an upgrade in jungle, and dip to 9th. We watched that Vitality super team in Europe bomb out. We watched FlyQuest just last split make one change at support and bomb out of playoffs instantly. Like, every team's floor is the fucking ground. Like, I just don't there's League has proven time and time again that like team cohesion at the highest level matters more than individual skill to such a degree that like if you just don't jive right, you will dip all the way down. Like the Team Liquid and FlyQuest aren't immune to it. You better believe no NACL teams are immune to it. With that said, I think the floor is pretty high here. Like, I think the individual player talent is really good. These players are all individually proven to be very good. There's not like a ton of risk pieces here, and I don't think Disguised Toast feels the need to take those kinds of risks, right? Like, I think his role in the league or what he's here to do is very apparent here. He's not, trying to pelk out the next really high ceiling but real variable star. He's not trying to like develop some kid for LCS. He is here to pick up the best players, guarantee himself as much as he can a deep playoff run, and have games for his fans to watch deeper into playoffs. And I think this team will get him there. Their ceiling is definitely up at first. Again, despite the fact that I hate that kind of analysis, if they're less risky than teams like Team Liquid and FlyQuest and Supernova. And if the risks with those teams manifest, DSG will be there to scoop up that equity and can move themselves as high as you like.
Biggest
And
missed
one more-
opportunity, by the way, is they're not Toasty Alex is not on that team.
It is someday.
Huge missed opportunity.
Someday.
Yeah, but you forgot one aspect of Disguised Toast team building as well, though, Gordo. He's a content machine, and he has arguably the biggest content top. He has the biggest content top laner and jungler on his team.
He does actually. That's gonna go hard. I didn't even think about that, but that is gonna go hard. All right, who's next? I wasn't even looking at who's next. Yes, FlyQuest Challengers is next. Let's see if we can get the sweep going here. This team is Surdy, Shaden, Quad, Sejed, and Chime. TDS has this team first. I have this team first.
I'm just gonna stand here like this.
First.
I've got sixth. No, I've at first.
Right.
Sorry for that one. That's the unanimous first, baby. I'm gonna lead us off there. This team has 3 LCS players and an LCK player on it. I think there's a
All right, wrap it up. We're done.
Yeah, there's a pretty straightforward argument, I think, for all 4 of those guys to be number 1 in their role. Yeah, there's 4 teams, like I said, that I have in championship territory, but I think this one's firmly the number 1. I do want to say, I think the notable piece here is actually Sejed. Like, that's going to be the piece that people are least familiar with, because he hasn't played at this level before, and he is a rookie. It's so notable to me that Sejed is here because of how much sense the veteran options made, right? Like, I'm really surprised that Wixie isn't here, especially with like the 100 Thieves connection between him and Papa Smithy. Especially when Fly Fam was all 100 Thieves next guys. I'm surprised that King isn't here, considering that like Surdy and Shaden are coming straight from the EGLCS squad that was being built, and King was also going to be on that squad. So like the fact that those guys aren't here when they definitely could have been here, and they go with the rookie anyway, even when they have a rookie above him in LCS in Masu, and you would think traditionally you like want to have the really reliable backup there. Even then, they still choose to go with Sejed. Like, that's wild to me, and I'm like forced to conclude that they must love Sejed over there. Yeah. They must think they found themselves another Masu. Like, there's no other explanation for why Sejed is here other than that organization believes in him so much.
Yeah, exactly. I can see why.
I like him too. I like it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think his tryouts especially were really good. I think his time on Lit last split was really good. He played an ACL. I think he was great there.
Had some
I'm high on
crazy
him too,
ACL
but
moments.
like FlyQuest
Yeah.
is really high on him.
Yeah. For the sake that we're all having them at first, I'm only gonna pick out one player to talk about, so you guys don't have nothing to say except repeating.
Thanks.
This is everyone remembers my Zazel campaign
Oh my
last year,
goodness.
right?
The
Okay.
crusade
I
of
have
Zazel?
I have, which ended up correct, by the way. I just want to say this. You know, he made an LCS team when he deserved to be. Chime is my Zazel for 2024. Chime is the best support in the NACL. I think he is incredible. I think he should have been on an LCS team, which is hilarious because arguably the guy that took his spot in the LCS was Zazel, technically,
Sure.
which is. But I think Chime is an insane player. You know, when Gordo says you could argue four of these guys are the best in their role in the NACL, Chime is the guy that I'm going to cap for over and over again. I think he heightens every team he's been a part of past the expectations they were at, and now he's on a team that is his super team of his career so far, if you want to put it in quotation marks. So I'm excited. I'm sad that Chime is not in the LCS, but if he wasn't going to be, this is the best spot for him to land. Yeah, he's going to be incredible for their championship roster.
Is this
I have a
team?
question.
Is
I have a
this
quick
team? Wait, I have a
question
question
for-
too. Is this team
No,
better
no, I
than
want-
2023
Okay, you go.
TSM?
Yes. That's my answer, yes. I have a question for Slayer.
No, yeah, yeah, I think they are. I think they might be.
I have a question for
Ugh.
Slayer. Your Zazel each year, does it have to be a support? Is this just a coincidence that Chime is your Zazel and they're both support?
Well, now it's a bit, so it probably will be a support every year.
Okay, it
but
is a support.
But I mean, I had guys I was capping for in other roles too.
Well,
It wasn't
well,
just.
we need
We'll
to-
get to some of the other ones, by the way.
True.
So
Here's my thing. We do our MVP at the end of the year. We have to give our MZP, which is the most Zazel award. For you, it's just the Zazel player of the year. Yeah, I don't have much to say about this team. I think the fact that they're all first means that I could say anything and you guys would go, yeah, you're right. They're just the best team. That's just it. They're just the best team. And so, yeah, Sajid is the unknown factor, but obviously they believe in him. But I just don't need to say anything. Like, they're the best team. They're probably going to win. And if they don't win, there's going to be a million podcasts that are like, how did they win? Like, that's kind of where this team is at. They are the super team. And I can't say anything about a super team that hasn't been said a million times before in every single sport.
I'll poo-poo it a little bit there, unless Nyarko has a unique take coming in here. I do wonder a little bit, because listen, I've been on this for forever. One of my core philosophies that I espouse on this show and everywhere is that there's systemic bias against NA players. Like, the entire scene has spent so long shitting on NA players that we just live in a fog of it. It's the culture that we exist in, and nobody's immune to that. Not even me. And so I do have to question, like, as somebody who does have Quad and Roamer very high, are we like, is there good reason to have Quad and Roamer like super 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 high? Like, is Quad like guaranteed to come in here and be the best player? Like,
I was gonna say I don't even think Quad's the reason I'm so high on this.
No, he's not. He's not. But
he's not.
But I mean, he was in that list of 4 players who could be the best player in their position, and nobody pushed back on that. Like,
I think
compliance is not denying.
Yeah, I think it's. You're gonna hate this, Gordo. I think when it comes to Korean players coming to NA, their ceiling in their role is usually always 1. That's kind of the logic I'm using when you said that.
I think that's fair.
Like,
I think Quad has a little bit of an exception too, because like he was in LCK for a little bit. Like, there were LCK orgs that believed in him. Maybe when we get to Roamer, maybe I'll give a little bit more of a rant about it. Despite the fact that I also have Roamer very high, I think the fact that they're coming directly from Korean solo queue and that they're coming directly from like the Korean organization and Korean coaching will be good. I think they will come in and be very strong. But I just want everybody to have that in their head a little bit, you know? Just think about that kind of stuff when the new imports come in. Like, are these guys that are like barely out of T2KR, are they guaranteed to be better than every player in T2NA? Not necessarily, although I will be starting them that high.
Ask Arrow.
Arrow was coming out of being like a really good LCK player. That's my point, though. Like, Arrow was not a guy. Roamer, all 10 LCK teams watched Roamer in LCK CL and said, nah. And now he's in NA tier 2 instead. Like, Arrow was a starter on a
Arrow,
Worlds
yeah, he was-
qualifying LCK team.
Yeah,
Like, they're not the same.
They're not the same.
Oh god, I love Arrow as well because it's just the funniest thing as a Team Liquid fan when you like can tell people like, yeah, our a challenger team's incredible, and they're like, you have a really, I'm like, hey man, I don't know what to tell you.
MVP.
We developed talent, we developed him, you know.
Developed him.
Teal fans go from, hey, we have a Worlds qualifying AD carry on our NACL team. Oh yeah, what about your main team? We have a Worlds winner that
Yeah, exactly.
wasn't actually the greatest when he came over here. We don't talk about that part.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, we'll get back on the Roamer train later. It's going to be a while before we hit TL. That's how the alphabet works. So, let's get on to Lethal Intentions Lit Esports. We have got Dragoon, Kisno, Messages, Rock Boom, and Plucks from top to bottom. I'm confirming where my rank is. I am correct. All right. TDS has them at 8. I have them at 9.
I've got them at 8.
I have them at 9, but I could have them at 8. Is the thing. I could have them at 7, man. This is what I was belly aching over with earlier on.
I don't want to be a martyr for all of these teams. I have them at 5.
Wow. And we done it again, baby.
I
Oh,
don't know,
maybe-
man.
Maybe it's
Three
not
splits in a
here.
row.
Maybe it's
I-
lit.
I can
Yeah,
only
okay.
buy on so many hills.
Oh god! Out of all the hills for you to die on, though, I could actually see this one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not even joking.
Jeez,
I
you
could see
must
it.
hate some of these teams, Louis. Coming up later. I'm
Well,
just
this-
excited
this
for
is
later.
The unfortunate
All
thing
right.
of how rankings work is, which means I'm going to be really low on some teams.
I know. That's what I'm looking forward to. But go
Well,
ahead.
let's
You
give
can,
him
you
the
can talk us up
stage.
on lit. I want to hear what you think
Yeah,
about lit.
let's hear it, man.
All right. So when I died on the AOE hill, no, what hill did I die on earlier? Fear. When I
Fear.
died on the Fear hill earlier, it was a team, right? It was a good, strong system behind Toasty Alex. With this, I just believe in messages, man. I really do. I think messages is very good. And I think that where there's a lot of question marks with Rock Boom and Plucks, I think messages is very, very good. I do like Dragoon. I do like Kisno. And I just really, really like messages. I watched a lot of messages, and I thought that he was very good. And I'm glad that he made an NACL team. And I think that he can be, this is, clip it, a top 3, maybe even top 2 mid laner. So, yeah, I'm very high on messages, and it's skewing my bias. Again, if we're going to go ceiling floor, ceiling is probably 5. I think I rated them a little too highly, but look, Gordo put it best, right? There's an emotional connection, whether you like it or not. And when you like a player, you just tend to rate them at, towards their higher peak. That's exactly what I did. So
Did I say that?
I don't actually think that we're going to be seeing them stack up well in a full season versus some of the other teams that they were competitive with in NACL Open qualifiers. I don't think they've made enough progress to really push them into the stratosphere, to push them into, some kind of contention with like the middle band of teams that have a lot more, I guess, firm identities within the NACL itself. But they could also surprise as they turn on the gas with the last NACL Open qualifier, and that's what brought them to this entire league to begin with, right? But individually, I like these players quite a bit, which keeps them out of the 10th slot. Dragoon, Messages, Rock Boom, all really, really solid. I actually haven't seen a whole lot of reason to have faith in them as a collective, but I don't really think that matters. I think that, there's a chance that they climb above 9th, but if I had to put a few of my teams closer to their ceiling, then there's others I have to put closer to their floor, and I am choosing to put Lit closer to their floor within my ranking. And Gordo, I have a whole thesis statement about why I actually really like leaning upon this, but, we'll hold that off for another time, as I'm sure that as these teams actually start getting ranked against one another and we actually start seeing games and the records come out, it'll be time to talk about that.
Yeah, I think I love what you say there, though. That like I do like first through ninth. I actually kind of like all these teams. Like I think I we'll get to 10th, but everybody else I kind of like the rosters they built for themselves here, and I like see what they're going for. Um, Lit, I love narratively. Like this is the first. I think it's worth calling out, right? And giving props for. This is the first team. To like realize the NACL dream, right? This is the first team of 5 rookies who have never played in Tier 2 before to qualify for NACL, and they've stayed together as that roster. So that's super cool. I'm happy for them in that, and I'm glad that this has happened so quickly because this is kind of what this whole format was built to achieve. Love Mirage Alliance too, but it was not built to qualify for former This wasn't built to qualify for former LCS players back into Tier 2. It was to let rookies who nobody respects get a chance, and Lit has done that. With that said, I'm going to be real with you all here. None of us thought this team would be here. I thought Team Ambition was better. I thought Winthrop University was better. I thought TFT and Supernova were better. And I think the 2024 NACL field is better than all of those teams. So like I just can't bring myself to like raise up that high on this Lit roster just compared to the strength of the competition and what they've proved to me. The upsides, I think, I agree with Messages. I'm a big Messages fan. I think he could be very good. He's very new to the scene. Kisno also, like I feel like people forget, like Kisno's going into his sophomore year of comp. Like Kisno came out of nowhere in OQ1 last spring, was recruited to Supernova to replace Hyper in OQ2, qualified for NACL on that team, moved over to Lit, qualified for NACL on that team, and now he's starting his second year of play. Like this guy's rise has been enormous. There's a lot of hype for him. He's tearing up Champs Queue right now as well. He's like top 10 in Champs Queue. So I think if this team does like make a big jump, I think it'll be Kisno, who is really surprising people. Yeah, I don't know. There's upside here. I just don't think the team has the firepower right now. A couple of these guys will probably go on to be NACL staples. But I think this specific roster of 5 will struggle with their 0 experience at this level.
Yeah, so I'll
Also,
keep it short
justice
and
for
sweet.
Coachify. Sorry.
Justice for
I thought
Coachify.
that I thought were
Hey
better
man,
than
Toasty's
Lit
in the
and
league.
West.
That's the justice. Toasty Adaption are in the league. That's the justice for Coachify.
True. I'm gonna keep this short and sweet as the middle guy at 8. Mainly because the bit's coming back in. What Gordo said is kind of my logic on why I'm up on the team. It's Kisno Messages. Well, and Bonfire with Messages. This is going to be the silliest reasoning for bumping them above 9. It's completely self-centered. They are 8 instead of 9 because Dragoon gave me my best casting clip of my career so far. So for that, Dragoon, thank you.
Ooh, this man. That's fair.
Why you gotta stop booing me in the middle of my speech, man. I need clips.
Dude,
You've
if
done it
ever-
like 8 times.
That's
on
exactly when
this
you're supposed to
thing.
boo people. You're supposed to boo people while they're talking. If you boo afterwards, then it's not a good boo.
Yeah, that makes sense when the people in the crowd are booing, not
I'm in the
a person with
crowd.
them. You have a microphone in front of you. It has the
Yeah,
same
that's
audio
fair.
level
I
as
guess
me.
that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right, I'll leave
Hang on,
my
I
booze
can
till
bump it
after.
lower.
I would turn it off.
No,
If you start seeing them boo, turn it off. But yeah, that's the silly reason I have them at 8. Listen, you guys know I like to have some fun with some of these rankings. Sorry,
I think a lot of positions are justifiable, except for 5th.
Whoa. Are we going to talk about how he said I like to have some fun and then just copies Gordo's rankings? All right. That's so much
He's
fun.
one higher than me.
Bonfire. If it's any
literally
consolation,
have a
man. If it's any consolation, I like the fact that I now believe that the 5th is possible almost makes me want to have them move up the rankings for me. I'm not gonna lie.
The indomitable.
I think it's
human spirit of
possible,
Lady
dude. I
Sports.
really think they can.
I do like. Don't get me wrong, man. I think like NA mid is in. I love the Messages love. Like NA mid is in such a good position coming into 2024 spring compared to where it was. Like I remember I did a meme on Twitter, I think like 6 months ago or something, where people were talking about how they were good. Or it was actually just this last offseason where people were talking about how there's no good NA mids to pick up. And it's like, oh man, the academy teams had like 6 import
yeah.
mids in academy in 2022 when this wasn't an open circuit yet, and now there's no good NA mids to pick up. Who would have freaking guessed? But now, yeah, I mean, like, I love messages, but I also love like Young and Shochi and Toasty. I have hope for Onat. I have hope for Dark Wings. I think even RJS could be pretty cool, and I think the Koreans are going to be good. So it's like it's just so hard for me to like put. It's so hard.
You're like Rob Lowe with the NFL hat on. You're just like, I like all mid laners.
I do like all mid laners, man. I think so. It's like ranking these guys was super hard, except for Get Back, and
We'll get there. We'll get there.
no hate to Get Back. No hate to Get Back.
Really, Gordo? No hate to get
like
back?
just
We'll
a
get
little
there.
bit of
We'll get
a little bit of friendly ribbing on Get Back. But
Aren't we like almost there at this point?
we're gonna be there.
Nah.
We're gonna be.
Actually,
Wait, they're next up. They're next up in the alphabet.
Oh God.
But yeah, no, I mean, I just and Get Back's an import anyway. By the way, so we're talking about NA mids right now.
You said and the Koreans.
Yeah, there's a comma and then
Okay.
a separate point. There's a semicolon in there to allow us to get out of the next point. Yeah, I just think there's going to be a lot of really good mids in this league, and so even if messages like hits around where I expect or even a little bit higher, I think he's going to struggle to be like top of the board, just because I think there's really high ceilings on a lot of players here. And I mean, like, yeah, whatever. We'll get back in a second.
I was gonna say we've been on live for a minute.
We're here.
We can move.
We're here. I'm not going to dig any deeper. Let's get to Maryville. Maryville University is up next in their second split. TDS has this team at 10th. I also have this team at 10th.
Yeah, they're 10 for me.
Yeah, man. They're 10. They're 10.
You have them.
10th. Count them.
All right, that's 10ths across the board. This is the anti-fly quest. I feel like I was too mean to Get Back before, but yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of. I think all in all, I think this just the league got stronger, and I think this team didn't. Like this team was barely a step removed from getting relegated. They were 8th, and they were like hard 8th. They were 8th by they were down like 4 wins compared to EGC at 7th. And they were only like 2 wins away from getting relegated themselves, and arguably those were the 2 wins they earned against AoE when they had to sub in Acadian at Marksman or whatever. So I mean, they very easily could have been relegated instead of Supernova last split, like very easily. I don't think the additions of Spyrex and Iconic changed too much. Yeah, I mean they had some graduations going with Odd Orange and Niles, so they brought in I think Spyrex will be a fine top laner, but I think top lane's really stacked in this league as well. I think both the solo lanes are, so I don't expect him to be like top half. I don't think Iconic is like a huge upgrade over Odd Orange. Iconic was in Maryville while they were running Odd Orange. They could have made that swap at any time. And I expect Get Back, Scary Jerry, and Zyko to be at a similar level to what we saw from them last split. Maybe they make big steps up after having had a split of experience in the NACL, but it's just not something I'm going to be placing my bets on. I will say Maryville has Yuji now. He goes to the school. He enrolled after dropping off a FlyQuest. If they put in Yuji, I don't think it'll make a huge difference, but it could bump him up a little bit.
Fair point. The main redeeming factor for me potentially putting them above 10th was Spyrex playing the role he's better at, and he's not moved to top. So, wait, what am I supposed to say here? Name me a mid to top. How many times have we made this joke? What was it before last season? We always talked about support to jungle. That pipeline's fun, or marksman to support. Where does a mid gone to top and that worked? Come on. I'm mostly asking Gordo.
Fudge swapping back.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
That's a swap
natural
back.
mid laner Fudge. Everyone knows
swap
him.
back. I have nobody else. I don't have any other good suggestions.
And if Gordo doesn't have one, my
Sense.
point is elite. So there you go.
Can I boo
Gordo's-
you now?
Oh,
Gordo's gonna think about
Xiaohu did it.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Show who
You
did
Okay.
it.
only need to be one of the best Chinese players of all time.
Yeah.
You only have to be like a
Yeah.
top 10
Yeah.
player all time.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then maybe you can pull
Yeah.
it off.
Then yeah.
Yeah. Potential first LPL inductee into their Hall of
Yeah,
Legends
exactly.
or whatever.
I'll keep my point short and sweet. They go against every Maryville. Look, I gave them the time. I love collegiate League of Legends. I think it's a fun pipeline. They go against everything I believe the NACL should be. They are my immortals to the NACL. They go in every split and they just do well enough to make it to the next split. And I hate it. They take no risks.
It's okay.
They constantly do the least.
Well, that's the thing.
Okay.
They're always going to struggle to take risks because to get a new
They're
player, you need them
handicapped.
to
Then get 'em
enroll
outta
in Winthrop
here.
University
Then get 'em
or
outta
in
here.
Maryville University.
Then
They're
get them
hand-
out of here.
They're handicapped like Immortals.
I don't
like
care. Get
Okay.
them out of here then.
Well, the other
If-
thing
if-
is like they do have like I would love to see Kachu on this team. Wow, do I sound like I'm really hating on Get Back today? But like Kachu's
Get
on
Back
this
did-
roster, and I like Kachu's a super interesting player. I would love to see. He's like a
Alright.
melee mid specialist. He was on Team
I
Ambition
actually
last
almost
split. I would
want-
love to
I
see him
almost-
on this roster.
I almost want Get Back to have a great year now. I just look, if they have these struggles and they cannot compete in the NACL because of the enrollment requirement, then they should. And I hope they get relegated. And I hope other NACL teams that can have more exciting, fun rosters are able to get in. If I have to watch Scary Jerry get 8th for another split in a row, I'm gonna lose my mind. Like, just I want them
Dude.
to look.
I mean, if
And
you know
it
what, if you
sounds
love
personal.
CLAW, Winthrop University is on their way in here. Winthrop is.
Thank God.
Winthrop's
I
coming
was
in.
gonna say
But
Winthrop's coming in.
This is what it should be. It should be colleges that have fun, exciting rosters when enrollment happens, come in and maybe they do something and maybe they don't. Maryville had their time. They didn't do something. Stop using a roster slot. I hope they get relegated.
Well, Bonfire, do I have some bad news for you? Arguably, the best CLO rosters are people two-timing their time between NACL roster and a CLO roster.
Except
now,
for
so-
except for Winthrop, who are
except for
who are
Winthrop.
coming
They're
in,
they're-
baby.
Yeah, maybe.
Whatever. I have him at 10th.
Let's. I want to hear Nyarko's CLOL MU talk about this.
Well,
Well,
That's
I'm
what
just
Mary-
depressed now, man.
Yeah.
Maryville University is my favorite team.
I know they are. That
Well,
and
there's
you
always
have
a
them
fair-
at 10th, man. So
Just-
please,
look,
give us-
man. At least I get like. There's a difference between being realistic and then I don't know praying for their downfall.
I do sound bad. I do sound kind of bad.
Look how Nyarko and Bonfire flipped when we went to a different team.
I'm
by
gonna
the
cut
way.
all this. We're just gonna say 10th, 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 and it's gonna go right
No,
to
here's the
Mirage
thing is,
Alliance.
like I said, I was supporting Bonfire on his last whack ass point. Okay.
Whoa!
And he's gonna come and do my favorite roster like this. I want to see all these guys at NACL. I love the fact that we have this Herald of CLOL, and I know that Winthrop University is looming on the horizon. You know, it's a sword of Damocles for this entire argument that we need at least one CLOL representative. Because are they overall more qualified than the current Maryville roster to make a splash at NACL? Yeah, but also Bonfire. The relegation system works for the most part. I'm broadly pretty happy with how it plays out. Some teams will eventually and occasionally limp back in for another split. It's not that big of a deal, man. It's not that deep. Now, that being said, the ceiling of this team is like 8th, and their floor is 10th and dropping out of the league. It makes me very sad to say it, but the only reason why like I think they have any vertical mobility is because Mirage Alliance is kind of an unknown quantity as their new 5 coming into the league. So maybe they're gonna tank and fall to 10th, and that'll bump Maryville up to 9th. Oh god, I feel so bad about saying this, but I like all the players.
I would like to say I got reprimanded for my point, and then you went on to say this is the team by a long shot.
But that doesn't mean that they
Yeah, that doesn't mean you have to hate them for it.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that you have to hate them. What, you think I hate, like,
I would.
you think I hated CLG Faith? I was a CLG Faith fan too. You know,
Yeah.
just because they deserve to be relegated doesn't mean they deserve to be relegated. You get what I'm saying here?
I would like to issue a disclaimer. I don't hate any of these players. That was not the point I was making. I just think they're
I would just trade them for Winthrop University in a second.
I think they're.
If
taking
I
up
had
the
to see
spot.
Scary
Drops out.
Jerry get 8th again, I'm going to fucking lose it.
Dude, if Scary Jerry leads us to a Worlds run, then may God smite me down. But he doesn't have the sauce, my boy. I'm sorry.
Oh.
What is going on?
All right. That was a lot of discourse over a team that we are in complete alignment on.
We're complete agreement.
Not
Complete.
even a
We're
little
on the
bit
same
of
side.
not even a little bit of
Oh.
disagreement on that team. Carries with it plenty of discourse. Let's get
You
on to
know what?
Mirage Alliance, a team where there's going to be even more discourse. I know I'm going to have to get into an argument here. I know I am. Mirage
Oh,
Alliance, Alorum, Dardoch, RJS, Scooped, Prismal. TDS has this team 9th. I really thought he would be my boy here. I have this team 6th.
Whoa!
Yeah, no.
Give me numbers, boys.
9. I'm 9.
I have them at
I'm nine
8th,
with
and
Mirage.
honestly, I'm thinking about moving them to 9 retroactively just so I can align with Bonfire's thoughts on
I have them
a
8, and
little
I'm
bit
also
more.
thinking about moving them to 9.
So I'm the hater with TDS. Okay.
You and TDS.
You know
are
what?
haters. All right, I'll let me get in here. I mean, let me get in here and defend my boys. I have in my notes here, by the way. This is probably my hot take, so I know I know that I'm coming in. I'm coming a little bit hot here. So first of all, I do think, and I'm not saying. Yeah, I'm gonna let you guys make the point before I try to refute it. But if you guys try to make a everybody here is toxic point, then I'm gonna have to have an argument about it.
Oh no.
Because I do think a lot of people look at this team and they're like, RJS and Dardoch, how is that ever gonna work out? And it's like, I think Dardoch is gonna be a real threat in the jungle. He's grown up a lot compared to like what people think of when they hear the name Dardoch. You know, he's since his last spout in the LCS, he's been coach for IMT. He's gone to school and played for UST. He's had this time at Mirage Alliance. Mirage Alliance ownership has great things to say about him. I've talked with Alorum a whole bunch. You know, we had him on the show a couple weeks ago. I talked to him a bunch after ACL matches. He seems to really like working with him. I've talked to Dardoch himself in ACL interviews. He's seems like he's really kind of turned over a new leaf in that department. So for anybody who only really watches LCS and hasn't really kept track of him since it is still just repeating breaking point memes, I think you will be surprised at how functional and stable he is as a player.
Well, and if I may, I'll ask you this, viewer who's hard on Dardoch. Where were you 5 years ago? How mature were you 5 years ago? Let's look at you. Dardoch got publicly broadcasted on a stage.
Well, also, this is way more than 5 years ago now. This is like 8 years
Yeah,
ago.
actually,
Yeah,
you're right.
It's,
Yeah, you're right,
it's
you're
been
right.
a long time.
Yeah.
The
I'm a
easy
Dardoch
refute
defender.
is this is the easy refute here is where do you here I'll tell newer league fans. Hey, Google Jensen's original screen name and figure out what happened. All right, that's all I'll say.
Yeah, no, but either way, yeah. So that's a lot of point refuting a straw man that it doesn't sound like any of you guys are gonna make. But beyond that, I think Alorum comes in really underrated. From what I've seen from Alorum, both in qualifiers and in ACL recently, I think he's like on some great form. I think he's at the top of his game. He's been on a long time. Been really impressed with what I've gotten to see out of Alorum recently. I think this team is definitely weaker than the one that qualified. I think having Neo was a really big boon to that team. I think outside of the Neo for Scooped change, though, I think the other changes are pretty positive. Like I think Dardoch has shown to be better than Chad in the jungle in a lot of scenarios. I'm really excited to see Prismal back. I think Prismal was a great support. You know, he got some LCS time at support, mostly because of Golden Guardians doing stupid import math shenanigans. But nonetheless, he's been an LCS support. I think Alorum, Dardoch, Prismal are all going to be really solid. I know a lot of people are really hyped on Scooped. And RJS has been like a really highly touted prospect before. You know, he's got a lot of memes about him, right? He's said some goofy stuff on Twitter. He's made himself a little bit of a focal point in discourse previously. But he was good when he was in NACL. I mean, he got himself some starting time on CLG, deservedly. He was good at his time on CLG. And again, like for people making the same argument, like, oh, this team's gonna crumble because it's Dardoch and RJS. Like, RJS has never had a team crumble. Like, RJS has played it out on every roster he's ever been on. Like, there's never even, it's almost even a weirder point to make about him than about Dardoch. Like, at least Dardoch has like been benched and been traded and stuff. Like, Nobody's done that with RJS. Every team that's had RJS has been like, we're going to see this through, other than CLG with the Bud Light Ace.
I forgot about that.
Oh my god.
But go ahead, go ahead, guys. Talk me down.
So I'm the hater, here, but I'm gonna make it pretty simple. I'm just nerfing, teams that are newer teams into the NACL in spring specifically. If this were summer and Mirage had gone through a split in the new system, if new Fearless, all this yada yada, I would feel better about putting them up there. But I just think this roster they got put together later than most is going to have some time to struggle. So I'm buying them a bit lower. I do want to say, Gordo, I'm not here to make the Tox argument. That's not going to happen here. That's a stupid argument.
I'm so ready. I have so much ammo. Please, somebody make it.
What I'll do with this time is, well, I guess I'm going to Bonfire make the joke. I also very much subscribe to what Gordo said earlier, that the AD carry position is very wide open right now. And part of that is because I am very high on Scooped. I think Scooped really showed out on a lot of his tryouts across a couple of those combines. And I just think, it's so fun that we have Scooped, Sajed, Wixie, Lens, Rockboom, and Array.
And Aaron.
Like
Scourger.
Mute his mic. All in the NACL right now, right? I mean, it's gonna be super fun to watch. I think Scooped is gonna be very fun to watch as well. But I overall think Mirage are gonna have growing pains. I do think since I put them 9th and we're playing this, I do think that they would be back though out of the relegation tournament. So I expect them to be a summer where I hopefully will be higher on them after a split in the NACL.
I'll make my point why I'm kind of in the hater camp. I casted for Mirage with Nyarko, and when we casted for Mirage, everyone said this is the best NACL OQ team, and they said this team could probably make NACL right now. Blah, 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 blah. And then there had to be a lot of stuff that happened, and they just slowly and surely started to fall off. Things started to go wrong. I don't know what happened, but then the next NACL OQ, they lost a couple of times, and then they joined the ACL, and they weren't as good. And every single time I see this team play, every single time they're slightly worse. And I'm starting to have concerns about this team. And then they drop all of their best parts that I was most excited about. I was a huge Neo defender. I was maybe the biggest Neo defender that existed. When I casted with Nyarko, it sounded like I was Neo's family member the way I was talking about him. And then they're like, yeah, all right, we're going to go with Scooped. No matter how good Scooped is, I will always say Neo deserves to be in that spot for what he did for Mirage.
For what it's worth, Neo's still sub on the team. It was Neo's choice to not play this split. I think they would be running Neo if they could.
Well, then if Mirage didn't do Neo wrong, I didn't know that, then I still think that they're going to be at a huge disadvantage without Neo. And I think that they lost just so many good pieces. I think Dardock as a shot caller at support was really a big reason why they did so well. And I think that they're going to lose. They lost Chad, who I was super high on. They don't have Sudsy anymore. I really liked Sudsy. It's just, what have they done with what happened to the game I love? This is no longer the Mirage Alliance I know. I don't believe in them anymore.
Yeah, that's a little trivia for anyone who's wondering, hey, how did Mirage Alliance change out 3 players right after qualifying? Doesn't that break the roster continuity rule? Neo is on the bench. That's how.
Yeah. Also, is this where we have the ageist NACL conversation now that you said Sudsy?
Sure.
Is it Sudsy?
I want to have my point in before we get into it.
I don't actually want to have that conversation. Go ahead.
Actually, now that I say that, I actually just kind of agree with Bonfire.
Yeah.
I was right there with you in the trenches watching their NACL qualifiers. I casted a lot more of them as well as the season ground on, because I was documenting their ACL run and stuff like that, which makes me terrified of saying that. I think that they're a 9th place team at the end of the day, maybe with slight upward mobility, as I'm kind of tempted to drive people up the boundaries, but yeah, I think that they just might actually be a 9th place team. I'm not going to be firm on it, but I'm down in the close to full hater camp. And it just comes down to the fact that throughout all of the time that I casted them, all of the games that I sat through, even in incredibly and imminently winnable scenarios, I was like, okay, guys, you got to stop forfunding it now. You got to stop forfunding it now. And they never did. And the question is, were they ever forfunding it, or are they just actually exposing their weaknesses? Because if it is the case that they just mess up in cases where they really shouldn't and they throw away guaranteed wins, given the fact that this is going to be the stiffest competition that they've ever faced, I have a feeling that there's a chance these people backslide. And unfortunately, this, I think, is a weaker iteration of the roster than what we saw in qualifiers, as Bonfire is also alluding to. I was never as big of a fan of Dardoch in the support role, mostly just because I could probably make a compilation of him playing Leona and Nautilus in ways that made me very, very irrationally angry. But, you have to realize that even if he is a more capable jungler, he's played support for quite a while now. And yeah, he's had a little bit more time to get back into the groove of his original role. But, that destabilization has to stand for something, alongside the fact that the team has radically altered their makeup in a way that I think cuts against their shot calling potential and overall playmaking ability.
Yeah, and I will say, sorry, just one more thing about them. The bailout when they were for funding it was Neo. It felt like he was their fallback. No longer have that. You don't have Neo Zephelios anymore to just win you team fights so yeah, Nyarko, great points. I'm glad we're back in we're friends again.
Yeah.
I was very sad when we were arguing at Maribel.
A few things on that. First of all, just because it's the most recent, on the support jungle point, he's been I do agree with that somewhat. I will say he has been playing jungle in the background the whole time. He's been playing a fair bit of jungle in solo queue. He was playing jungle for St. Thomas when they won their Seatlaw title, and that was while he was playing on this Mirage team. It was within the same month. I will also say, for one thing, two things about the previous splits of Mirage. For one, the roster you guys are talking about was 3 different players, and one of the players that isn't swapped was playing a different position. So you're talking about a Lorem top and a totally different team. For one, and for the other, I do think it's funny that you bring up your casting experiences with this team, because I think my casting experiences with this team are really kind of informing me the opposite way, because TDS, and that's why I'm surprised TDS isn't on them with me, is because TDS and I covered them in ACL lower bracket, where they dropped to the lower bracket in round 1, and then they came back and they beat Quacker and CCG Futures, and then they moved on and they beat Cincinnati Fear with Perry and Shochi, and then they moved on and they beat Lotus Exiles with Dark Wings was on that team, and then they beat Ole Miss and Shogo and all those guys, and then they had a very close series against Peach Cats, who went on to be finalists, where they just barely lost in 5 games. So, I thought their recent performances in ACL, and by the way, every time they win one of these games, Alorum is hopping on the post-match interview with us, and it's just yeah, we're not practicing. I don't know. We're just kind of pulling it together here. It's we're in the off-season right now. We're kind of just for fun in it right now, and we're pulling it together anyway. Which I suppose is a little bit similar to what you guys were saying.
I was about to say, wait a second.
I'm not saying that they've never forfunded. I'm saying that they forfunded in ACL. I think they'll less forfund it in NACL.
That's the hope. That for years. When will they stop?
Yeah, and then it's just, I don't know. It's also it's hard for me to make the I just don't buy the they're going to struggle to adapt argument, because there's 4 players that played in LCS on this team. These guys have been around the block. There's a lot of adults in this room. They got a lot of experience. I think that they're going to be better than people are giving them credit for.
Is your hot take?
It's my hot take. I'm not. You haven't convinced me out of it. You haven't talked me out of it.
After a split, I'd be closer with you.
We'll see.
Not yet.
All right. Well, we'll see how they do. This will be a fun one to keep an eye on. Let's move on to Supernova. Somebody fell into some new money, and they got themselves a new label. I suppose I should disclaimer once again, I am going to be working with Supernova on another podcast, so I am tentatively affiliated with Supernova, and that's not as funny anymore now that I'm not just going to say that they're 10th right afterwards. So if you want to discount my opinions because of inherent bias, you're welcome to do that. TDS has this team at 3rd. I have them at 4th.
To refute Bonfire's.
I didn't say the team. I didn't say the team. It's Faisal, Kenvi, Shochi, Array, Diamond. Sorry.
Hooray!
To refute Bonfire's point that I always agree with Gordo, and I'm just piggybacking, I've now agreed with TDS more on this list than Gordo, because I'm 3rd. Screw
I
you,
hope you
Bonfire.
knew I was agreeing with TDS throughout most of this list because I also have Supernova at third.
See, this is
Uh-oh.
Oh
this
no,
is
dude. If you say something below 5, we're
this is where my this is all right. I would like to preface this with saying this is where putting some other teams higher starts to bite me in the butt because there's only so many.
I
So
will
many-
walk off.
It's either this or Team Liquid at third. I have Supernova at seventh.
Ooh.
It can't be a
Ooh.
third place or seventh place.
Yeah,
What?
because
I mean, it
you
can when
can't
you have all the
preface
other
that.
teams where Bonfire has them.
You can't preface this with it was either them or TL at third, and then say they're 7th.
I have my
Doesn't make any
fourth system.
sense.
I don't
I
think
have
he's
my
saying
fourth
that was his
system.
decision process. I think he's
I think
saying
I'm-
that given
I'm
the
looking at
information
mine
we've
now.
already received, it was going to be one or the other. We should
I'm
have seen
looking
this
at mine
coming.
now. I'm looking
Here
at
we
my
are.
list now and I realized it. I probably want them higher, but yeah, I guess I have them at hatership.
All right. Well, you can adapt if you want. That is an LCS watcher's opinion of this Supernova team. I'll tell you that. Bonfire is an LCS fan's opinion.
Tap myself into a corner.
That's not an
here. I'm gonna
insult,
get
by the way. I am an
laid.
LCS fan, but that is a LCS watcher's ranking.
Yeah, I guess I can defend my 7th place if it comes.
Not
down
yet.
To it.
Not yet.
It's
Let's
not your
let who's highest? TDS is highest. TDS isn't here.
I thought
Slayer and
both
Nyarko are
were-
highest.
well-
Slayer and Nyarko, you guys go ahead.
I feel like Nyarko hasn't let out in a while, so
What is there to dislike about the team that puts them lower than third? I guess is my question. I think that
I
we've
can answer that
all-
question.
Yeah,
Well,
I guess.
hold on.
I like every single player on this team. I think that Faisal has continuously defined himself as one of the standout NACL products, and I'm happy to see him on a team that I think, by virtue of whatever money Supernova somehow found at the end of the rainbow, will actually be able to support like carry play through the top side. I think Shochi will be able to shoulder any burden that or slack that Faisal can pick up. Kenby's fantastic, and then Array and Diamond in the bot lane are still great. I think that they are head and shoulders above a lot of the duos that we've been talking about so far. And while I don't think they're necessarily the best, the fact of the matter is, I can now lean upon Slayer's points to, contradict what I was saying about AoE and be like, yeah, got these strong solo laners. I think they're going to make up for the fact that, this bot lane isn't my favorite just by virtue of it not being as important in the meta right now or whatever. So I think they're a very solid third, honestly. I think that while nobody is the best player in any of the roles, they're all top 3 to top 4, and therefore they deservedly are in a very consistent third slot for me.
Hey, yeah. Definitely not backboning my point off the fact I think they have the best bottom lane in the NACL.
Ah, crap.
Listen, you combine them, I think they're the best bottom lane because I think Diamond would be 2 for me,
I'm fine with that.
and then Array I think is the best AD at least right now. To make the joke, he has the best floor. The guy was subbing on Dignitas. He was killing combines like the entire time I was watching them. I think I watched some of them with you guys that Array was just smashing people.
That's fair.
So I think the bottom lane is the best bottom lane right now going into the NACL. Like Nyarko said, though, I don't think bottom lane matters as much, and that's kind of why they're third. The point I want to make really quickly here is I know somebody posted this on Twitter when Fearless Draft started getting teased. Shochi is the best mid laner for Fearless Draft in North America. Good luck keeping that guy on a pinch pool, even with Fearless. I think that we will find some mid laners will struggle. They'll get their pools pinched by the time you get to the third game or in these Fearless Drafts.
Or the 4th
That
or the
ain't
5th
happening.
in playoffs.
Yeah. Fourth or fifth. That ain't happened to Shochi. So Shochi's got a bit of an edge on some of these other mid laners, at least in that aspect, even if I don't think he's the best mid laner in the league right now. So that's a lot of the reasons why I think they're third. I'm also a big fan of Faisal. I know we talked about the Faisal-Phillips swap last split. It was a big thing for FlyQuest. I think, for the most part, he met that sort of description. I think he rose to that occasion and showed that he could start knocking on the door of a potential FlyQuest of LCS spot. I think when we were in the offseason, I said that I could see FlyQuest promoting him before they brought in someone else. So, yeah, Supernova. I mean, this is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, so this is a seventh place team. No, I'm just kidding. I like I said, I think I made my list, and then I think I'm looking back at it, and I'm like, oh boy, Supernova actually is pretty good. I think if I had to make an argument for my seventh place, which I'm going to stick to it, I am not going to cop out and say, whoa, they could really actually be
Yeah,
a
because
bit
I mean,
higher.
I've typed these all out already. I'm not moving anything around right now. I'm going to be honest
Well,
with you.
I know. No, I know. But sometimes I'm not pointing fingers because I've done it too. But sometimes in a ranking list, one of us will be like, I have them at seventh, but I think they could be closer to fifth if they have a really no. They're
Yeah, that's
seventh.
me.
So I'm not pointing any fingers. I do it too. I will say if they are going to be seventh, and if I'm going to create a reasoning for it, and I actually truly genuinely believe this, this is a combination roster. This is a roster that I don't think a lot of them have played before together. Stop me if I'm wrong. I
I
No,
don't.
think
I think
I don't think
you're
I don't
right.
think you're right. None of them have played together.
I don't know if
0.
any of these players have played together before.
No.
Yeah.
so. This
No.
is a combination roster, and you just made the point earlier, Gordo, about how combination rosters can falter and how you can have these super teams really drop to a low position when they haven't worked together before. And I know a lot of times we've made the point that they might not be the best bot lane, but they've played together a lot. They may not be the best mid jungle, but they've spent a lot of time together. This is a project. This is a belief. This is we got all of the best players we could in the position that we could with the money we had, and we're going to hope this works. You guys are buying into it. I am not.
I'm trying to figure out which of these players have played together before. Like I'm doing an immaculate grid now. I'm like, I'm like trying to figure it out. I don't think any of them have though.
They played together in a ranked game. Remember that?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, so I mean, I'm slightly lower than consensus, but and I think a lot of that, I think comes down to Faisal. Like, I was pretty disappointed with what happened with Faisal when he got his big kind of opportunity on FlyQuest last split. I think on paper that was supposed to be like, they made the Philip for Faisal trade on this version of this show in summer. I think I even explicitly said like, there's no secrets who initiated that trade and who profited from that trade, right? Like I think it was kind of universally recognized. Like FlyQuest said, all right, you get up here, Faisal. Cincinnati Fear, you could take Philip, and Cincinnati Fear had no choice but to accept that. Like it was not a negotiation. It was not a deal that both teams decided to take. It was a deal of FlyQuest having way more money, and they can pluck players off of amateur teams anytime they want. And with that in mind, like I think Philip outperformed Faisal in the last split by and large. Like I think Philip looked pretty good going into the slot where Faisal previously was, and I think Faisal is like relatively unimpressive on a FlyQuest team that I think had the skill on it on paper to like make a run and be champions, and instead ended up faltering pretty far below that. Yeah, and I think individually his performances just like weren't up to snuff with like the top laners in the league, and that's what I would have expected to come out of him getting the opportunity on like a major team like that. And I just think, like I've said before, I think top lane is like absolutely stacked in this league. Like I think I'm really high on guys like Surdy. I think Tenacity is going to be really good. I think Jenkins is going to come back in swinging. I think all those guys are going to be better than him. And it is just something that I'm really kind of factoring into my analysis there. And then on top of that, there's just like Supernova has been under a lot of turnover as an organization, like recently. Like I think everybody knows that they've had a ton of staff turnover. They're on like their third owner in 9 months, and I think they just need to like prove to me that they can establish like this stable environment for a team to like make that top 3 run, right? Like I think I'm just kind of baking in a little bit of concern that things are going to start to fall apart internally. And that just makes me have them like a little bit lower, right? Like they had a big falling out with one of their players mid-promotion tournament 3 months ago. So it's like I just want to make sure I'm baking in a little bit of concern that things might not work out from an org perspective, given how much turmoil is going on in there. I think that's really kind of what pushes them down to 4 for me. That, and I just have like a lot of internal faith on, like same way last split, right? When we were doing our rankings, DSG was bringing in 3 of the reigning champs, but I still didn't put DSG in third, and I think in first, and I think most of us didn't put DSG in first. I think most people had Team Liquid and or FlyQuest above them, And our reasoning for that is, right, like these LCS orgs, they've got all this staff, they've got all these resources. They're going to get more out of their players than a team that a streamer has thrown together super recently that hasn't really proven it like that. And I feel the same way about the two LCS orgs now, and I feel the same way about DSG now when I'm comparing them to an org like Supernova, who just hasn't been here before. They haven't had, kind of the big money roster with all the big stars on it before, and I just have a little concern about their ability to live up to those expectations. All right. I think that's everybody talking about Supernova, so we can... from there, move on to TL Challengers.
I can't believe you guys let me get away with 7th. That's crazy.
What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to kick you off?
You do this every power ranking.
There was look, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
TL Challengers. TDS has this team. Oh wait, nope. Gotta say the roster. Jenkins, Keel, Romer, Spawn, Kim down from top to bottom. TDS has this team 5th, surprisingly. I have this team 2nd.
I've got them 4.
Nyarko.
I have them at 6.
Woo!
I'm at 3rd. Is that a different ranking for every single person?
It is. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. For all the...
We'll go down the line then. We should just go down the line, right?
I guess so, yeah. I guess I go first on number 2. TL in particular, as a team and how they run their academy program, out of like the teams that have had success at this level, I feel like they out of more so than anybody else have really marched to the beat of their own drum. Like they'll get role swapped Bradley and unretired Arrow and 2 CLaw players at a time when the track record for CLaw players making the LCS is abysmal. And they'll find success with it, right? Like that's what they did last year. They'll like randomly get Arthur for a year from Oceania. They'll do this kind of crazy stuff and just kind of make it work. Spawn feels like one of those decisions, and I just kind of have like I think he's always been a very good team fighter, and I think if anybody can make Spawn work, it's Spawn. I know Spawn is head coach with Spawn coming in to. I've been doing this on purpose. With Spawn coming into NACL, but I think he'll still be involved, and I think their coaching staff at this lower level is pretty good. Jenkins is awesome to have back. I was really high on Jenkins when he was on CLG Challengers. I'm glad that he's no longer substituting up at LCS. And I think Keel and Kim Down were among the best of their positions last split. Keel, I was super high on. Keel was number 2 in the most valuable prospect voting. I think a lot of people are very, very high on Keel, especially in a new jungle world that does not have, and I mean, admittedly, it does have like Kenvi in it again, but it does not have UG and Mir in it anymore. So I think like the race is going to be a lot between Keel and Perry and Kenvi to be up at the top. I'm definitely forgetting some cracked jungler in that list, but that's just off the top of my head. Oh, Shaden's in that conversation too. I knew I was forgetting somebody.
Slightly good.
And, Dardoch could be in there too. But either way, I think Keel is going to be right up there with those guys. I think Keel's been absolutely great. And Kim Down, I've come up even higher on in the off season. Kim Down, I remember with Peach Cats in the ACL, like a week apart, I got to see Wixie and Isles play together. And they didn't look too great in the matchup I got to see from them up against Winthrop. And then a week later, they played. Isles had already been promoted up to Dignitas, so he couldn't play anymore. So they had the E-Sub and Kim Down. Wixie Kim Down looked like night and day. Kim Down looked so much better than Isles in that finals. It was really a big shock to me personally. And not just that, I think his performance all of last split was just getting better and better all the time. I'm excited to see how he does on this team with an off season given to him. And I just have baseline high expectations for this team all around, Romer included. Even though I'm a little skeptical of LCKCL players just coming in and immediately being the best, I still think he'll come in and immediately be pretty high. He'll be pretty high up there. And listen, I'm acknowledging my bias.
Sure.
It surrendering to it immediately. I think Romer's going to be great.
I guess I'm 3rd, so I'll keep it short and sweet. Everything you said, but I'm 1 lower because of 2 reasons. One, I don't have as much of a bias towards Korean players. I think Romer is probably going to be a little worse than you think. And two, I think you're underrating the importance that Spawn had as a coach on that NACL team. Because I've been following this Team Liquid, obviously, bit of a fan. This Team Liquid NACL saga since they've had Spawn as a coach, since they won back-to-back titles. Back when it was what was it? It was before it was called the NACL. Blanking on the name.
Academy.
Yeah,
Crazy
NACL
words.
Academy.
It's a hard one.
How about you wait your turn like a big boy? All right. Back when it was Academy, I can't hear you. Back when it was Academy, they won back-to-back titles with Spawn,
Is it hard to talk
and
when
then
people boo you?
they went on and they had still two very good splits when it was the NACL. I mean, Spawn had a huge impact on getting so many players into the LCS, and so I think that it's nothing to brush off, and I think that they're going to have a bit of a down year, which for as good of an org as Team Liquid is this third.
I believe Nyarko, you're lower than me, correct?
I am.
That means you're next. Yeah, unless anybody wants to make a guess at what TDS's arguments are.
Quick random point I want to make. I went back and checked the tape. Nyarko and I are actually reigning champ predictors.
Ooh.
So Mr. LJ Vogel 2 over here throws out the best hot takes and lands them.
Your own points, Jesus.
We both said DSG first going into.
Oh, you did. All right. Well, the rest of us didn't.
Most difficult choice of all time.
You didn't make it.
Yeah, but you're going to discredit my EG pick for some reason.
For some reason, the roster completely changed. What do you mean, some reason?
Challenger last time I checked. So
Some
whenever you want to make a
All right.
point about
What do you got? What do you got for TL?
I think I cut Nyarko off. So
I thought we were going top to bottom.
Go up.
we're going top to bottom. Okay. So I think for me, they're kind of TL kind of fell. It's hard for me. Listen, Romer, I think is the problem for me. I think they're gonna have some issues with Romer compared to some of these other mid laners. I think it's kind of for me how I thought, TL had some problems getting going with their LCS team when they brought a Korean in. I think that's something that might happen here with TLC. And I don't know. It's just this is not a lot of a logical pick for me. It's kind of a gut feeling that there's a lot of reasoning for why they should be higher. And I'm not on that train just yet. I recognize that Jenkins is probably going to come in here and be pretty good. I definitely capped for Kiel a lot of last summer, and for good reason. It's just my other takes. It's kind of like the more not as chaotic reasoning for Bonfire landing on teams at 7th that I have landed at TL at 4th. Other agendas have pushed them back, not crazily back, but okay. I've had to land at this point with them at 4. I will, like I said, I can't remember which team I said about last split. I will happily eat a crow when I'm wrong, and I'll say it. But for now, I have them at 4.
All right, Nyarko, you have them so low. You have them at 6th. What's up?
Yeah, you know what, Gordo? For as much as we try to talk about the anti-NA sentiment and the fact that imports, are overvalued, at least I'm actually living that philosophy because I don't think Romer's shit, man.
Let's go. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, man.
But you know what? I think that I think NA collectively we could take him. I don't think that this mid lane is gonna define a TLC, and if that's the case, we got to look at a team that is certainly middle of the pack, and I think has a ceiling that could push maybe towards 3rd or 4th, but I really don't think that Jenkins, Keel, Spawn, Kim Down are particularly better than, say, what we're seeing out of Fear and everything like that. And given that, I think the biggest focus upon the players in terms of their capabilities is coming in the jungle role and the support role. And you know my philosophy whenever I do power rankings, whenever I talk about a team, I'm a support player, but I don't believe that supports do all that much. It means that I'm really looking at Keel as someone who can take the reins of this team and bring them to victory, because Jenkins, I think, is just going to be a pretty neutral quantity on the top side of the map. But when you're looking at the rest of the pools for the jungle role, and you look at the people that I've been really high up on throughout the split, I feel that on principle, I can't really put Keel above Rosethorn or Chad, as crazy as that sounds, because I like both of them more, and I think that if Dardoch does adjust, even Mirage Alliance might have a better jungler.
I respect the take, to be
Yeah,
honest.
no,
Yeah,
in
I
my
respect
defense
that. I
on the
respect
Roamer
that.
point, even though I am pretty high on Roamer, even removing him, like I do think that Jenkins, Keel, Spawn, Kim down is way better than the equivalent players on Fear, or for example,
That's fair.
to use that as an
I can
example.
understand
Like
that.
I think, like I do think, I don't even need Roamer to be that good to be pretty high on Team Liquid Challengers. And I do think I think he'll come in and be top half. I don't think he'll be like the best in the league, and I would love it if he was worse than that. Not gonna lie. I would love it if the North American players just are dumping on him.
That's the King Gordo like campaign.
It is, dude. It's like
It should be the campaign of all of us.
It
to
should.
be honest.
It is.
Like
Well, it's difficult for me because I'm a TL fan.
it is, and it's also like I also like what Roamer represents, right? Because we all know he's here to like take APA's spot if APA isn't good enough. Like they have an open import slot. Like, he's here to move in and
I
create
swear.
TLCK again
I
in an
swear.
instant.
Ugh.
I swear. Don't.
That's why he's here, guys. I'm sorry. but-
I know, but I swear.
Slayer, is this what being a TSM fan feels like? I hate this.
No, TSM would never promote a player for their academy team.
Yeah, that's true.
This guy just takes shots, man. This is just absurd.
Just put him up.
I was a
there, baby.
TSM fan
just
too, man, for
absurd.
years. Okay, I get to say
Yeah,
that.
okay,
Yeah,
all right,
but
Gordo.
you
All right,
should- you
Gordo.
was
I
in
have,
my
this is
face,
a
Gordo.
We
TSM
need to
water
calm-
bottle that I'm drinking
Yeah.
out of right now. Okay,
We
Like,
need,
Oh
we need
my
to calm
God, he has
down
no
with
problem.
the. I used to be a T. Let's just not talk about them. I don't want to talk about them.
It's okay,
Hey,
Slayer. I always
it
hate
could
it.
They
be
can go
worse.
fuck themselves. I don't want to talk about them.
Oh, it could be worse. You could be an Evil Geniuses fan.
I don't. They're both
you
just.
could
they're
be
both
both.
just
It was
shit.
rough,
They're
dude.
both just shit.
It's been a tough couple of years.
Oh wait, you were an EG fan, weren't you?
I was
Gordo, for a
both.
little
Yeah, I
bit?
moved
Oh
from
my
TSM
God.
to EG.
Wow.
It's been a
Dude,
tough
that's like
few
being
years,
that's
man.
Being a foster kid going to 2 abusive homes in a row. That's
Alright.
terrible.
My word. He's
Let's
just a fan of them.
all right. Let's move on from TL Challengers before I keel myself.
Oh my.
You took my joke from
I
earlier
did.
today? Oh man,
This is the
I was
most
telling
unhinged
Gordo.
Power Rankings episode.
This is
I was
Oh.
telling Gordo I lost my NACL qualifier casting position.
That's how you just. Oh,
That's how you
Let's
like
get
it.
in there. Let's keep going. We're almost to the end. Oh shit. All right. Wild
He was
card.
smirking the joke.
Wild card.
I'll steal your joke in an instant, Nyarko. Don't think I won't.
oh.
All
Right.
Let's get on to wild card. Wild card from top to bottom as our last team in the NACL is Quacker, Winnie, Darkwings, Aaron, and Doxa. For those who are mathing it out at home, you already know what our ranks are. For everyone else, TDS has them 7th. I have them 8th.
5th.
Whoa!
Whoa!
5th.
Holy
5th for you too, Nyarko?
No, 7.
Oh, okay.
I'm, you know,
ninth.
I have already burnt my one crazy take.
9th?
Ninth.
Wow.
You think they're gonna get relegated?
What do you mean? Wait, wait. I'm closer to everyone else than you are. All right. How am I the one that's
They're
getting...
keeping them in the NACL.
Fair. You are pretty high on them, Slayer. Go ahead. Get hyped about this team.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
let me
this is my team. Like Gordo said, he's gonna be cheering for AOE. This is my team. This is wild card is the team that I will be rooting for, and I will be capping about the most. Which yes, it does mean that me putting them 5th is biased. Guess what? That's the entire point of this fucking podcast. So there you go. They're number 5. Have I been capping for Quacker for more than a year? 100%. Did I cast a bunch of Quacker in the offseason? 100%. I don't care. I think Quacker is now in a better position than he was on Supernova. I think all three of the other people here would agree that this is a better team around him now than it was on Supernova.
My first
Is
note
it-
here is literally on the bright side, something to get excited about is it is better than Quacker's team last split.
so there's the first jumping off point, right? Quacker. Also, Quacker. You know, if people want to bring up the point, there's gonna be like three. There's gonna be like maybe two people that make this point. Quacker's offseason on CCG Futures, like he wasn't even supposed to be on that team. Like that team was a dumpster fire. I'm sorry, that team was a dumpster fire. They changed the roster completely. That I know they did because me and Gordo made a power rankings video about the rosters going into the RCL, and the only person who was still on that team by the time they were doing playoffs of RCL and ACL was Quacker. So, not really gonna I'm not gonna give him too much, you know, slack for the offseason and how he played in tier 3 leagues because he was on a roster that was just hard to even manage. So Quacker, I'm going to cap for Quacker. I think he'll end up as you know, floor top half top laner even in this pool. I think he could go higher. The main point that I'm here for is we've talked about cohesion between players and how that is a bit of a buff for a lot, you know, when you rank them. Winnie and Darkwings were the best part of an AoE roster that I think was, you know, had a lot of complications through the summer split with, you know, subbing in player to players, internet's going out, right? All of that. I think Winnie and Darkwings
You mean
together
the spring split? Because they had Will in summer.
Sorry, the spring split. I think Winnie and Darkwings together is underrated, and I think is a duo. This top half of the map is kind of what's selling it for me. I'm very high on Darkwings. I think Darkwings is going to show on this better roster as well for him that he is a much better prospect talent than people gave him credit for in the summer. And while, you know, I'm a big fan of Arian, Doxa I'm a little unsure about. I'm going to close it out with the point that I started with. Bot lane's just not going to matter as much, guys. So I think Wildcard are going to be 5th, and I can't wait to cheer for them.
Do I have to go because I have them at 9th?
You can go because you have them
Alright,
at
I'll
9th.
go. I'll go.
Let's change
Yeah,
that
I'll go.
perspective a little bit.
Yeah, we'll change the perspective. I think that, and here's the thing. I actually think that Slayer is taking a pretty good line of reasoning because it's the line of reasoning I took for all of my hot takes, where it's if you look at the best possible scenario of every player on this team, they're actually pretty good. I'm going to say I'm not going to look at the best possible scenario of this team. You say Quacker's had a lot of problems with his teams. That's why we can excuse his tier 3. I'm not going to excuse it. You say Darkwings and Winnie have been in a tough position, and you know there was a lot of moving parts around it, and that's why we can. I'm not going to excuse it. So I'm going to say that while you think they are better than we can give them credit for because of their past scenarios, I'm not going to excuse that, and I'm going to say I don't think that they're actually that good. The only person I'll excuse is Quacker because I actually do think Quacker is pretty good. But I
You
think
just
that
say you don't excuse him?
no, I don't excuse his tier 3 performance, but I still think he was pretty good. I don't know why you're saying like we should give him an exception. He was still good even with all the roster, pandemonium. I also think that I know that you've lived and died on the point that bot lane doesn't matter. I'm not convinced of that yet. I think that we will have yet to see that. And I think if you do look at this bot lane, holy moly, I'm not really that high on it. So this is my reasoning. I think realistically, I think we can handshake on this. They're probably not going to be 9th, and they're probably not going to be 5th. But you are the ceiling, and I am.
They're going to be.
I think
they're
that's
going to be
a fair
8th.
way to go.
Or 7th.
Yeah, or 7th.
But I think that I just don't believe in this team, and you really believe in this team. And then Gordo and Nyarko are probably the two that don't have skin in the game, and that's why are probably.
I mean, I do love Quacker. Don't get me wrong. I love Quacker. Go ahead, Slayer. You look like you're itching to say something.
For the second time, I have to make sure that Bonfire doesn't change my words after I say them. I didn't say bottom lane doesn't matter. I said it's the least valuable. So I just want to make sure that's on record.
Just okay. All right. You just
not
wanted
the
to get a
same.
word in. It's basically the same thing.
It's not the same thing, and I hate when you misconstrue my words. So I need to make sure that doesn't happen
it's
on a
close.
recorded
You get your
atmosphere.
+1, Slayer. Congratulations.
I'll say they're close.
That's basically, there we go.
I do agree with quite a few of the points. First of all, this is the most Myra Davis team of all time. Let me say that right up to that. She loves all these guys. I know she worked with Quacker on Wild Card, and Winston on Wild Card as well. Winnie, and Aaron on CLG Faith. So this is 4/5 of St. Louis University. By the way, for those who are keeping track, this is St. Louis University plus Quacker. So they definitely do have a lot of pre-existing synergy coming in there from that. The role swap for yeah, I agree. The bot lane is just not it. That's what I'm struggling with here. I think role swap Doxa. Like I've said a lot that I think anybody could role swap to support. Like I'm just by default to believing in role swap supports at this point in League of Legends because everybody and their mother is doing it. But all the successful ones have usually found a lot more success at their main role first. Which Doxa has yet to do. He was not that much of a standout mid laner on TSM Challengers. I don't think he's been I think he's been a solid mid lane prospect, but I don't think he's ever been like top tier. Needs to be in tier 2 level. Myra is not the only person who's really high on Aaron. I know a lot of people are really high on Aaron. A lot of people that I respect are really high on Aaron. I just have not felt like I've seen it from him. I feel like he has not ascended to being like the top of the table in tier 3, let alone like somebody who needs to be in tier 2. He struggled the last time he was on tier 2 with CLG Faith. Remembering him on a team like Team Ambition back in the spring, he was like good, but not like needs to be an NACL good. He got knocked out by the Grandpa Gamers when he was on Komodo last summer.
Respect the Grandpa Gamers.
Yeah, it's and props to them. That was like a little bit of an upset on paper, but like the fact that he's never made top 8 in an OQ like is sticking out to me. And like he's never gotten to be on one of those like really great world beater AM teams. So that's a little unfair to hold up against him. But it's like I get the potential. I've seen the flashes of really great play, but I just feel like I'm not sold on Aaron yet. I don't think having a role swap support is going to help him very much, and I think they're going to be one of the weaker bot lanes in the league. And I'm not sold that it doesn't matter. I think or will be super negligible. I think it's going to be.
Still matters, man. Never said it didn't matter.
Sure. I think it's going to be a bigger deal, or at least I'm going to default to assuming that it's going to be about as useful as bot lane usually is, which is a lot. It matters a lot usually. So until proven otherwise, yeah, that's where I'm going to be sitting. Nyarko, any thoughts from you? I don't think you got to talk on this team yet.
Yeah, not really, but I don't have a ton to say, mostly because the reason that I have them at 7th is that this is the team with, I think, the least remarkable people in every role. This doesn't mean that they are bad. I really enjoy watching them, and I like them as players and as members of the community, but I don't think any of them are tanking into the 10th position of any role, and I don't think that anybody's even pushing top half. So with that in mind, out of all of the teams that have the capacity to like jump up the rankings, really just kind of defy expectations, I don't think Wildcard has the capacity. And because that's the case, I don't think that I can justifiably put them above 7th, because everybody else above them is being ranked more towards their floor, and I think that they have a higher ceiling.
That's a fair point.
I'm actually glad nobody agreed with me.
Good.
Okay.
Good. I actually wanted that.
I was gonna say,
I did.
We all have our team now.
I did.
We all have our team.
We do
that
all
we
have a
can
team.
say, yeah.
And before the season goes on, if 3/5 of our team gets upgraded halfway through and then makes a deep run, it's not the same argument. I'm just putting that. Apparently, I have to say that now.
Anyway,
Nice,
I've been compiling
you
our
got me.
rankings throughout the show. If I take our average and I start from top to bottom, I think we have a pretty good list here. We have we all have some standouts here. It's obviously Fly Challengers in first. It's DSG in second. Supernova and TL tie for third/4th.
My bad.
5th is AoE, 6th is Fear, 7th is Wildcard, 8th is Lit, 9th is Mirage Alliance, and 10th is Maryville with the cross the board 10th. I'm surprised that Mirage is that low. I guess I couldn't yank them up far enough. I guess everybody else put them 8th or 9th, so that's not too big of a surprise. Not a bad list though. I think we've done pretty well for ourselves here. I don't hate that top to bottom. I am not ashamed to publish that on the Salt Mine Twitter after this episode goes out.
I'm
I'm
gonna
with
go
it.
out and say it. I think I'm gonna be wrong on a lot of things, but I hope at least a couple of mine.
I'm pretty likely to be wrong on a lot of things as well. We'll see. I did submit my power rankings to Salty Runbacks thing, so we'll see if we can if I can steal their
Yeah.
money as a rival
Nice.
podcast. I think that'll be very funny.
Well,
Uh,
just quickly at the end, we said this before we started the podcast. I think we can all circle back to it now that we're done with the rankings. Was this not the hardest rankings to do?
Oh, it
At
was
least
so
for you
hard.
guys. So difficult for me.
Yeah, I did in like 5 minutes. I didn't think it was that bad.
Oh wow! All right. Well, Nyarko's real confident in his opinions. Pay mind to that when we see how the results.
Oh
start
no,
going.
no! I think it's very clear from the way I delivered half of my opinions here that I'm not confident. I just did it in 5 to 10 minutes.
I think I have like 5th through 9th. I think we're all very very close to me, and like
Yeah,
1st through 3rd are all very close to me as well. Honestly, 1st through 4th are all very close to me.
Just was to make 4th and 5th just the easiest.
No. Did I not include 5th? I think 10th was easy. I think 1st was easy.
If we're being realistic,
Yeah, I think 2nd through
Wha-
4th was hard,
one,
and then I think
two-
5th
one,
through 9th
two,
was
yeah.
hard.
I think 1, 2, and 10 were easy. 4 through 8 were hard.
That's fair. That's a fair point. We got the cat on screen. I think that's where we're going to close things out. But thank you all for tuning on in for this little off-the-wall, off-season episode of The Salt Mine. We are inching in at just about 2 hours, and I think that's about where we wanted to be. We're going to be back weekly once the NACL kicks off. Give our thoughts and opinions on each and every week of play. Until then, take it easy. Watch some NACL. Tune in for the opening day of the LCS and the NACL. See some of these players play. And then come back here and talk about it.